So, coming to the main story, now there was this Linus Torvalds who came up with this kernel, and with the components already available in the GNU moment, it came together. And my earnest appeal, humble appeal, don't use the term Linux. Whenever you have to speak about Linux, say GNU Linux. Then people will ask you what is GNU. Tell them this story. GNU means GNU is not Linux. Then they will not understand. Then tell them what is GNU. Take 2 minutes and explain. People will either be completely put off with your attitude, or they will understand and tell 10 minutes. But make it a practice. Slowly that will come. So GNU Linux emerged. And slowly but steadily, GNU Linux gained popularity. With popularity comes some problems. In 1998, a person, I think, whose legacy is questioning, wrote an article. The article was titled "The Cathedral and the Bazaar." The person who wrote it was Eric Raymond. He wrote an article which was widely published. You should read that article. This is mandatory. See, some things are mandatory in this course. Reading this article is mandatory. Yesterday I told reading that letter is mandatory. I hope you have read it. Reading this article is mandatory. Cathedral and Bazaar by Eric Raymond. In fact, there is a whole book called as Cathedral and Bazaar in which this article is also. That article, I will analyze the article a bit later. But that article gave a beautiful metaphor. People want metaphors. They love metaphors. Cathedral, Bazaar. Cathedral means nice, well-built temple. Bazaar means chaotic. So he said software development happens in 2 ways. I am just summarizing. One is cathedral way of building it, another is Bazaar. This people in the software companies, that is what is the basic assumption. But I will challenge this later. This Bazaar style of development where everybody contributes actually works. That is what he tried to claim. And he coined the term he coined was open source software. That term came with that article. Open. Though people were using this term loosely, because please understand what RMS introduced was the term free software. What is free software I am going to discuss it. But I am just completing my story. After Eric Raymond's article, this term called as open source software became popular. Because according to the enthusiasts, free software is confusing. Free software does not make people understand the real meaning. Open source software is quite clear. What are you saying is, make the open source code open. Very clear meaning. That was the assumption. So open source software, the term was gaining popularity. Somewhere at this time, very popular story, one more, which I will come back later. For our understanding, this much is sufficient. Netscape was having a basic problem. Netscape was the leader in the browser industry. By this time, you should know that 1998 means internet had come and the browser market was heating up, and there was Netscape. Netscape was a market leader, but slowly Microsoft Internet Explorer was gaining popularity. So Netscape wanted a strategy to counter Microsoft Internet Explorer. Very famously, the bosses in Netscape read this article, Cathedral and Bazaar, and they decided that they will open source the source code of Netscape browser. It was called Project Mozilla. And for the very interesting documentary is there, Code Rush. Have you seen Code Rush? I have the document. It traces the Netscape days of releasing the source code, and they released the source code. Great fanfare. They released the source code, and the term open source software now became very famous. Now one more guy entered, Tim O'Reilly of O'Reilly Publishers. They, Netscape guys, Eric Raymond, Bernes, all these people came together and open source initiative was formed. Richard Stallman had started Free Software Foundation way back in 1984. In 1998, 99, 98 to be very precise, I remember the dates. Open source initiative was formed and they gave a definition for what is open source. So now you have what is free software and what is open source software. On the surface both look same. On the surface we consider them together like what we are doing here in the course. We are making free and open source software. But the term is gaining popularity and all, but there are tensions, there are differences. But anyway, with this, the long story which I started will come to an end. Storytelling comes to an end. That is, I have traced the story from Bible to now with the release of Netscape source code to the public. I think here I will stop my story. After that, it's a major success story. Various other aspects, what happened later, we will be discussing in this course. But this is the main story which I wanted to say. To quickly recap, what I have done is, I have placed the movement in a historical context. Why I had mentioned Bible, why I had mentioned few things, I will come back to it later. But I hope the whole narrative is now a kind of structured and complete. So now I will come back to the main. For people who are keenly looking into the syllabus and what percentage of syllabus is covered, I have covered the first units 50%. See, the first unit according to me should answer two questions. What is the evolution of free software? What is the evolution of open source? And the story of emergence of Linux. No Linux, thanks.
So one more question. So you had mentioned long back the misnomer of calling it free software, not freedom software.
Yeah, I am coming to it. Now the time is now. Now I am coming to the main point. Now the things I am telling you now is actually complicated in some way, but I think it is mandatory to all of you to understand and tell others the difference. I am actually, I don't know how right I am, but I have this kind of stupid assumption that all of you have come here to actually know what is free software. I don't know whether I am right. If that is the case, then I want you to hear very carefully from now onwards. Because you will be asked again and again what is free software, what is big deal and all that. And if you are not able to answer, you are collectively letting all of us know. So at least if you can't answer, you should call me and or if I am available, drag me to that battle scene and say you know. I will do it. Because I have been doing this from more than a year. It's not easy, let me say. See, it is one thing to talk, one thing to do. I have seen people today, how the situation has come down. I feel really sad. Today there are people who will talk about free software in a very colorful manner by doing their presentations in Microsoft PowerPoint. Seriously. Why go anywhere? Come to our den. You will see so-called our PR engineering boys doing their posters and other things using Microsoft Word and other things. And see, yeah, we are doing engineering. It's not correct. It's not correct. Talking is easy. That's why I think other Chinese were so pissed off and he made that slogan of Oscar. Talking is easy. You can talk about it. In fact, I have a huge doubt about what made you take this course. It's a huge doubt for me because I am very sure, though I don't know. I know that officially I know that only 3 students are placed because only 3 have given me seats. So I don't know how many are placed. Officially I know 3 people are placed. But if I do the statistical analysis, I will know that many of you are already placed, maybe with 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 5 jobs. Scene is good. So all of you will land up in jobs. When you land up in jobs, there is no way that you can practice whatever I am telling you. Difficult. So ultimately, why you are interested, I really know. Because free software at the end of the day is a movement. Open source software is just a technical argument. Basic. Free software is not simply about software. If it was simply about software, why should we spend our lives like this? It's not about software. It's a social movement. And being a part of the movement is not easy. There will be questions asked, there will be troubles, there will be so much hardships. There will be attractions to come out of the movement and join mainstream. If somebody is able to sustain in this movement for more than a decade, you will know what are the difficulties. Ask me, I will tell you. If you commit yourself to free software, then you should say, I will not compromise. It's very easy to compromise. You will not get something. You want to make this work. There is a cheap alternative there. Why don't you use it now for one time? Can't. Why don't you go and work somewhere? You will get so much pay. Why don't you develop this software in this language using this technology? You can buy a new car within 2 months. You can't. Once you believe in the core principles of free software and you say, yes, I will be in this movement, there is no scope for compromise. Meaning you should be ready to go through this hardship. Very, very few people will do this. Very few. It's not about software, I keep repeating, it's not about software. For example, we have an accepted practice that we will not drink bottled water. Mineral. We will not drink. How difficult it may turn sometimes. I have seen many people, oh, okay, today I have been somewhere and they have offered me, there is no other water, but why just, no, you can't. I don't, and I face severe problem. But I draw my inspiration from RMS. You know how much do I travel? I travel within India. But he is a global traveler. Today if he is in this country, tomorrow he is in some other country. Never ever he drinks mineral water. Never. He will make doubly sure that the water source to him is not mineral water. He simply says, no, I don't. Finish. The kind of ideological commitment becomes very hard. And you have to pay a price for it. You have to pay. There was a rough estimation done on how much money RMS would make if he had gone the commercial way. One company doing operating system, selling it, how much money has Bill Gates made? Whatever. No, what I am telling is, see, if RMS were to make money, if you try to match these two, RMS money would have been more than Bill Gates. Naturally, because the profile, the product profile itself of the free software movement is much larger than that of Microsoft. I am not targeting Microsoft, I am not at all targeting. I am just comparing. Somebody did actually calculate how much money. And it's in the presented RMS and RMS said, oh, is it so? Fine, that's all. Till today he does not draw a salary. He does not draw a salary. He is unpaid worker in MIT AI Labs. He is living. How does he live? Somebody will book his ticket from there to here. We will book his ticket from Bangalore to wherever is his next destination. There somebody will book his ticket. Somebody will arrange for his ticket. He does not have great ideas about where he should stay in 5-star hotel, nothing. If I tell come to my home today, I will simply come. He stays only with some of the close friends here. Take home. Oh yeah, he actually is okay with all that. No big fuss. No, he is living, no. Point is, it's not that it's not possible. It is possible. But it takes great mental strength to say that I will do it. So thinking about free software and thinking about it as a technical alternative is the first thing you should drop. I mean, if you think that free software means yes, GNU Linux and I use GNU Linux, that's not the start, that's not the end of supporting free software. Free software, I will repeat again, is a social movement. Social movement. What does that mean? That means you should go back to our definition. What is the greatest contribution of RMS? You can list many things. See, if you just list what RMS has given us, he gave us GCC, technical contributions. He gave us GCC, GDB, Emacs. Emacs alone is sufficient to qualify him as the greatest programmer of all times. Emacs, for people who use it, is life. I mean, in life, if somebody asks me what do you need, I say I need Emacs, that's all. I don't need anything else. There are very few things which you can't do in Emacs and can do with something else. Emacs is life. Yeah, you can in fact play the game life also. Oh, I haven't mentioned the game life. Oh, this game life is very important. If you have not played the game called as life, I mean, all of you are playing the game in the real world. You are all playing the game, making good moves here and there and all. But you should play the game life on the machine. I mean, if you don't know what is the game life, and if you think computer games is all about NFS and Age of Empires and all that, then better see what is this game called life. This is a hacker game, pure hacker game. The hacker logo is a particular moment in the game called as life. It's very interesting. If you can play that game, playing the game, I mean, playing life is not actually playing. You know also. I can't explain it, but please play life at least once. Hacker robo, I didn't say. There is a hacker robo shooting gun somewhere that has a very long distance. GCC, GDB, Emacs. Technical contributions. The whole technical expertise of RMS would not have been successful if he was not a philosopher. Writing software is one thing. You can write, there may be one among you who can write a better software than others. But being a philosopher of that level is very important. He defined what is the most important thing required in software. He understood that as freedom. And he told what kind of software he is giving to you is he called it freedom software, for short he called it free software. And gave his very famous statement, free as in free speech, not free will. I hope all of you have heard this 100 times, so I am not going into depths of this statement. What is free will, what is free speech? But I think what is important here is actually putting this whole philosophical idea into legal language. The legal language what he developed, the format he gave to us, which he called as GPL, GNU General Public License, I think is his greatest contribution. Because if there was no GPL, there was no way we could defend freedom like the way we are doing now. Thanks to GPL, we have a legal way to fight the whole thing. So, the main important part from now onwards in my talk will be to tell you what is free software, what is GPL, and how does it help us in protecting this very important concept called as freedom. We'll take a break now. In the break, I am giving a small assignment. When we come back, we shall start our discussion by analyzing why is freedom important for us. Why do we need freedom? Not in software, forget software completely. Why do we need freedom? What is this freedom? I can, pull up. What do you think is the difference between these two terms? Independence and freedom. 5 minutes break, we'll come back and start the discussion.